Well, once we're done on our primary instrument, we have some time to devote to our doubles. We can start to think about other things. On flute, the first notes I'll play usually focus on vibrato. The musculature is a little different. To make vibrato on a flute, think of whistling 16th notes. We're using muscles up here, not necessarily down on the lungs. Since these muscles are used for speaking, they're something we use every day and tend to have more control over. So the first long tone exercise I'll play uses vibrato at the end of a note and then through a whole note and then only at the beginning of a note. And we'll start with nice slow vibrato as triplets. Then we move on to 16th notes. Once I'm happy with my note connections and my vibrato, I'll practice articulation. And on flute, you have a lot more freedom to articulate using the outside of the embouchure. It sounds like B and P, which uses the front part of the lips to separate the sound. Here I could play a little quickly. After I've practiced starting notes and articulating between notes, sometimes it helps to practice double tonguing on flute. I'll start right away by playing up do, re, mi, fa, so, fa, mi, re, do, instead of just double tonguing on one note, so that right away I'm practicing with notes moving, which is more commonly how we deal with double tonguing in real music. Make sure we're thinking of saying do, gu, do. If you say tu, ku, sometimes the tongue just moves too much and it creates a little too much chaos for the airstream to be moving smoothly and give us a sound we're happy with. Finally, we're going to deal with flexibility of air, which is a big thing that's different between flute and other instruments for me, both in terms of air speed and direction of air even. And there are some different ways to go about going from the low octave to the high octave on flute. Unfortunately for us, there's no button that goes like, go to a higher octave now. So we have to find a way to do that on our own. One way to do this is to actually aim your air somewhere different. So you can just put your hand kind of beneath your chin and try and aim your air right at your palm for low note. For middle range, maybe your hand right in front of you, and without moving your head, only using kind of the jaw front and back motion, aim your air right at your palm, and even with the hand a little higher. By aiming your air in different directions, we can get Of course, you can also just change the size of the aperture. A smaller aperture makes the air move faster, which will push you into the higher register. And finally, to practice that small aperture, you can try something called a whistle tone, where you take a very high note and using an extremely small aperture and a very small amount of air, we practice getting that sound out of an instrument. Finally, on the saxophone, whereas air is the most flexible thing on a flute, I think of the voicing or the tongue position as the most flexible thing on saxophone. So we'll start off by practicing some overtones. And first I like to play the note we're aiming for. In this first exercise, we're starting on the second overtone or the third harmonic. And then I'll take off the octave key and try and keep the note still there. And then finally I'll finger the low note and try and keep that same sound coming out of the instrument. Once we're comfortable with that process, then we can start playing through this next exercise. For anything above a fingered low C sharp, actually keep that C sharp pushed down because it helps notes higher than it come out smoothly. And finally, at least pick 2 different scales a day just to practice range of the instrument, which gets us thinking about our entire instrument instead of just reading notes. For this, I tend to try and rely on just my brain if I can. So we'll start with F jazz melodic minor, which is the ascending version of melodic minor, both up and on the way down. I'm going to play the scale up to the highest note within that scale I can play. And then I'll go all the way down the instrument until I get the lowest note on the instrument within the scale that I can play. There's no shortage of patterns and scales that we can practice every day. Hopefully this has given you a little bit of insight into how to go about deciding how to spend your time and practice as a doubler. Happy practicing.